I legally bought 5 classic cars from a widow. Someone posing as her grandson tried to sue, but was exposed as her granddaughter's ex. I'd been restoring my neighbor Margaret's fence for free when she stopped me mid-hammer to ask about my truck. Is that a '69 Chevy? She squinted at my project truck, parked in her driveway, the one I'd been rebuilding since high school. Close, 71 C10. Still working on her. Margaret smiled sadly. My late husband Robert would have loved talking trucks with you. He had 5 in the barn before he passed last month. She paused. Would you want to see them? I need to sell, but I want them going to someone who'll actually drive them, not some dealer who'll flip them. The barn was a time capsule. 2 fully restored Camaros, a 67 SS and a 69 Z28, a 70 Chevelle that needed nothing, and 2 parts cars that were basically rolling scrapyards. I did the math in my head. Easy $85,000 if sold separately. Probably $100,000 to the right collector. Mrs. Margaret, these are worth real money. You should get them appraised. I know what they're worth. She handed me a folder. Robert kept all the documentation. He always said he wanted them to go to a young person who'd enjoy them like he did, not rot in some collection. She quoted me $40,000 for all 5. I felt sick. That's half what you'd get from I'm 76 years old with more money than time. You've been mowing my lawn for 3 years and never let me pay you. Robert would have wanted this. I paid her $45,000. Every dollar I'd saved from my construction job. We signed the title transfers at her kitchen table. Her daughter Sandra was there, smiling, saying Dad would have been thrilled. I even took photos of us signing everything, just because it felt like a moment worth remembering. 3 months later, I get a cease and desist letter from a lawyer named Brandon Voss, claiming he's Margaret's grandson, and I manipulated an elderly widow into an unconscionable sale. He wanted the cars returned, or $120,000, their true value. I'd never heard Margaret mention a grandson named Brandon, but the letter looked official, and I started panicking. What if I had taken advantage somehow? What if there was some legal loophole I didn't know about? Then Brandon showed up at my house. He rolled up in a BMW wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, holding his phone like he was recording. I'm here to inspect the vehicles my grandmother illegally sold you. Nothing illegal happened. I have the titles, signed under duress by a woman with dementia. He smirked. Either we settle this quietly, or I file a lawsuit that'll cost you more in legal fees than the cars are worth. Your choice. Something about his performance felt off, too rehearsed, too aggressive for someone who supposedly cared about his grandmother. I called Margaret that night. Do you have a grandson named Brandon? Long pause. Honey, I never had any sons, just Sandra. Why? The next day, I drove to Sandra's house with screenshots of Brandon's threats. She went pale. That's Kevin. He dated my daughter Jen for 2 years before she found out he was stealing from her. We got a restraining order, but it expired last year. She pulled out her phone, scrolling. Mom never even met him. Jen made sure of that after what he did. Turns out Kevin, Brandon, had been stalking the family's social media after Margaret's husband died. He'd seen the estate sale posts, figured out about the cars, and created an entire fake legal threat, hoping I'd just pay him to go away. But here's where it gets beautiful. Kevin sent me one final text. Last chance before I file Monday. $80,000 and we're done. I responded, file away. I'll see you in court. Monday morning, I got a call from his law firm, the real one, where he was apparently a junior associate, except Kevin had been sending those threatening letters on company letterhead without permission, claiming to represent a client that didn't exist. He was fired that afternoon. Sandra called me a week later, laughing. Jen just texted me. Kevin's moving back in with his parents because he can't find another firm that'll hire him after being terminated for ethics violations. The Camaros are still in my garage. I drive the 69 every Sunday, exactly like Robert would have wanted.
I saw a $900 charge on our joint account from a jewelry store, and when I asked my husband, he said it wasn't for me. That was on a Tuesday morning while I was checking our bank balance before work. I was sitting at our kitchen table with my coffee getting cold, staring at the transaction on my phone screen. $900 at Brilliant Jewelers downtown, processed the day before. My heart started racing because our anniversary wasn't for another 3 months, and my birthday had already passed. When I showed him the charge, Kevin barely looked up from his cereal bowl. Oh that? Yeah, it's not for you, he said, taking another spoonful of Lucky Charms like he hadn't just dropped a bomb on our morning routine. I asked what he meant, and he just shrugged and said it was for work stuff. Work stuff at a jewelry store? That made 0 sense since he's an accountant at a tax firm. I kept pushing for an answer, but he got all defensive and said I was being paranoid and controlling. He grabbed his briefcase and left for work 20 minutes early, which he never does. Usually he scrolls through his phone until the last possible minute, then rushes out the door complaining about traffic. The whole day at my job at the bank, I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about that charge and how weird Kevin was acting. During my lunch break, I drove to Brilliant Jewelers. The store was fancy, the kind with security cameras everywhere and jewelry displays that cost more than our mortgage payment. I walked up to the counter and asked the woman working there if she remembered a purchase yesterday for $900. She looked at me suspiciously at first, but when I explained I was checking on a joint account charge, she pulled up their system. Oh yes, she said. Beautiful engagement ring. The gentleman was very specific about the style. Said his girlfriend loved vintage settings. My stomach dropped. Girlfriend. I managed to ask what the guy looked like, and her description matched Kevin perfectly. Tall, brown hair, that stupid goatee he thinks makes him look distinguished. She even mentioned he was wearing a blue tie with little anchors on it, which was the exact tie I bought him last Christmas. I somehow made it through the rest of my workday without completely falling apart. When Kevin got home that evening, he was in an unusually good mood, humming while he opened a beer and asking about my day like nothing had happened. I decided to test him. I suggested we go out to dinner somewhere nice this weekend, maybe celebrate us being together for 6 years. He got this panicked look on his face and said he was really busy at work lately, lots of overtime coming up, probably wouldn't have time for dates for a while. Then he quickly changed the subject to asking if we needed groceries. That's when I knew for sure something was going on. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to things I'd been ignoring. Kevin had been working late a lot recently, always texting someone during dinner, and he'd started going to the gym every Tuesday and Thursday night, which was weird because he'd never shown interest in working out before. He also bought new cologne and started dressing better for work. Friday night, he told me he had to work late again. I waited an hour after he left, then drove to his office building. His car wasn't in the parking lot. I felt like one of those crazy wives from TV shows, but I couldn't stop myself. I drove around downtown and found his car parked outside Romano's, this romantic Italian restaurant we'd never been to. I sat in my car across the street for 20 minutes, feeling sick to my stomach. Then I saw them through the window. Kevin was sitting at a corner table with some blonde woman I'd never seen before. She was wearing what looked like an expensive dress, and they were holding hands across the table. When she moved her left hand to pick up her wine glass, I could see something sparkling on her ring finger. That's when everything clicked. The $900 charge, the secret phone calls, the gym memberships, all those those late nights at work. My husband of 6 years had bought an engagement ring for another woman and was planning to propose to her while still married to me. I drove home and packed a bag. I took half the money from our savings account and booked a hotel room for the weekend. When Kevin got home that night and found my note on the kitchen table, his phone started blowing up with calls and texts. I turned off my phone and spent the weekend figuring out my next move. Monday morning, I called a divorce lawyer. Kevin tried calling me at work, showed up at my sister's house where I was staying, even sent flowers to my office. But every time he tried to explain, all I could think about was him holding that woman's hand and planning a future with her while lying to my face about working late. The divorce was final 3 months later.